Hari Kachin Hunju TYENDINAGA Abayangat Isutarnoaenle Matoten Achenson Anu Chizekli Jason Ischaini no Nukland Kai no Hajistai Anu no Matoten Chizekli Sausai Tani Skajanoaenle Ahireta Anu outside Bakos Chennai It's no kides ni thole tani to kai no afers kan kai sana te ki ke nan Prime Minister Trudeau kai ti ke ai chi hoya pasar de si sanu chen ne how some ye se je ni no ni an of this ni so ji sai so ne one of step chani at need no sa need when the world is a kind of Honda Tisu Tassi. Skak up a pay, no carry up a pay, any a bit just that. I was told that here too by each on kind of destiny. Good day. I am Was, house chief for the Grizzly House. I want to thank TYENDINAGA people and the leaders here for welcoming us into their land. And their hospitality was great. I have with me, we're all here together, Chunggan, Chayu, Smokers Gem, Lachamisu, Hauskat, Unesutan, Castewe, Gidimt'en. We come a long ways, not only the distance that we travel. And we heard Prime Minister Trudeau just a little while ago talking about the inconvenience that Canada has suffered. However, there is a difference between inconvenience and injustice. Total difference. Don't confuse one with the other. There's a big difference. He did mention the historic wrongs of the past. And he did mention a few things as well that I will go through. Today, the Mohawk people and the Wet'suwet'en people stood in solidarity at the Mohawk Council House in TYENDINAGA to affirm that they will not stand by and watch while Wet'suwet'en title and rights over their lands are ignored, and while human rights abuses continue to happen in the Wet'suwet'en territory. Contrary to the announcement by the BC RCMP on February 20th, 2020, that they are withdrawing from Wet'suwet'en territory. The hereditary chiefs of the Wet'suwet'en confirmed at the meeting that the BC RCMP and the CIRG have in fact increased harassment, made illegal arrests, increased surveillance, and monitoring of Wet'suwet'en people and their invited guests. This is completely unacceptable and far from the show of good faith and contradicts the announcement by the BC RCMP. Both the Wet'suwet'en hereditary chiefs and the Mohawk people of TYENDINAGA remain deeply concerned by the myriad of laws that Canada has broken, including Wet'suwet'en law, the Canadian Constitution, the Supreme Court of Canada, Delgamuukw decision of 1997, UNDRIP, and the Geneva Convention on Genocide. They want to remind Canada and the world that Wet'suwet'en land was never ceded or surrendered and as such, Canada's actions amount to an illegal occupation in Wet'suwet'en territory. They also want to remind the Canadian government that the rail line shutdowns could have been ended many days ago if only Canada, BC, CGL, and the RCMP had honored their own laws as well as the respected Wet'suwet'en laws. The Wet'suwet'en hereditary chiefs have put a path of peace forward in order that nation-to-nation discussions with Canada and BC may occur freely and without duress. We demand the remote detachment community industry service office established by the RCMP on Wet'suwet'en territory without our consent be immediately removed, and that the RCMP are completely removed from our territory and cease patrols from our lands. Out means out. We demand that all CGL activities cease within Wet'suwet'en territory while nation-to-nation talks are going as present to the eviction notice that was delivered to them on January 4th, 2020. We commit to entering into a nation-nation discussion with Canada and BC once the two above demands are met. And we insist that these discussions occur, that they will be held on Wet'suwet'en territory to ensure inclusivity for our nation, Denise and Jakaise, the hereditary chiefs, and the members that we are accountable to, and in accordance to our law. The meeting today came on the heels of the 9-hour meeting between the Mohawk people and Gidimt'en and the Minister of Indigenous Services, Mark Miller, on February 15, 2020. All sides have said are keeping the discussions open and remain hopeful. Since the beginning of the Mohawk people of the TYENDINAGA have stated their willingness to allow the trains to pass through their territory and remain committed to do so once it is verified by the Wet'suwet'en hereditary chiefs and their appointed legal observers that the BC RCMP are indeed out of the territory. Upon confirmation, the Mohawks have agreed to negotiate the peaceful exit plan as agreed upon between the Mohawks and the Minister of Indigenous Services Canada, namely Mark Miller. The Wet'suwet'en hereditary chiefs also want to reiterate to Minister Carolyn Bennett and Mark Miller that they remain willing to enter into a nation-to-nation talks once the RCMP is out of their lands and all work by CGL has ceased. This we will remain committed to.
Yep. We're done. Oh, he's not. He's got a statement to make.
I just want to address the words that the Prime Minister said, that these talks or the dialogue is one-sided. And the one-sidedness started ever since Confederation. All of the things that are going on today have been one-sided. When you take a look at the consultation process, and the consultation process is set up by governments, with no inclusion of the Aboriginal voice inside there. When you take a look at the negotiations that we were doing, and it was all one-sided. They had a predetermined, when you go across the Rockies, when we're discussing treaties, it's one-sided. We were set in place with negotiation of the outcome being 5% of, it's called the 5% land selection model. So when you take a look at that, they had a predetermined outcome on it. When we take a look at the environmental processes, do you see the Aboriginal footprint in the environmental process? Again, lopsided. You don't see the Aboriginal voice in there. So when you take a look at all of the processes that we've got in Canada, and you take a look at all of the regulations that they're putting together, you're not going to find the Aboriginal voice in there. So when Prime Minister Trudeau is talking about a lopsided dialogue, one-sided, he better take a look at the way they've been treating the Aboriginal people ever since Confederation. Thank you.
So there are some people that have set up one-on-one interviews, and we will take those in a moment. Thank you, everybody, for coming. We appreciate all of you coming out. What? You wanted to? Okay.